Good afternoon. It's Tuesday, the 27th of January 2015, just after 1 o'clock. Welcome to UK Column Live. And I have a guest in the studio with me today. We've got Guy Taylor. So it's the two of us, myself, Brian Gerrish, Guy Taylor, and we're going to be running through the news, but we'll also have a special focus on recent events in the repossession of Tom Crawford's house in Nottingham. Well, the weather, pretty gloomy in Plymouth, quite chilly. I think it's about 8 or 9 degrees here, grey skies, bit damp overnight, and that seems to be what we're picking up from most of the reports around the country. But the weather is just not important in the present situation, because the climate we're interested in is politics and what is really happening in Britain. And we're really seeing some extraordinary things as the Lib Lab con moves us towards a dictatorship. We'll kick off with this article, which was sent through to us by Christian Concern. Breaking news, the second gender abortion doctor is to appear before Crown Court. And this extraordinary story is about a doctor who was filmed offering to abort a child simply because she was a girl. And what has now happened is this is going to be brought in front of the courts. And this particular MP, Fiona Bruce, has been tabling an amendment to the Serious Crime Bill that would confirm that gender abortion is illegal. And this amendment has already been backed by over 70 MPs. But isn't it interesting that here we have something we've never really seen in Britain before? We are murdering unborn babies on the basis of their sex. This was something that came out of China, really, during the attempts to regulate the Chinese population. And now, mysteriously, it's cropping up in Britain. So, Guy, have you any thoughts?
Well, as you said, it just sounds like something out of Mao's book, doesn't it? In a little red book or whatever. It's ludicrous. You know,
that's absolutely true. What interests me is where has this come from? Where does it lead us if it carries on? Who's going to make the decision? So abortion at the moment, a very hot topic.
Hot topic, yeah.
And something particularly unpleasant. So if you want to know more, go and have a look at Christian Concern, because they are certainly keen to flag up this particular issue. Where do we go from that? Well, thank you also to our viewers and listeners overseas who sent in this, which has cropped up in Ireland. And RTE News are reporting here that a new passport card has been created, which will allow European travel. Now, this is, of course, not an ID card. We're not calling it an ID card. We're calling it a sort of passport card. And if your passport has been sent back to the authorities to get it updated, or to get a new corner stuck on it, possibly, then what you need is one of these, which you can use as a passport to travel around Europe. But of course, it's not an ID card.
No.
So the people who sent it in to us said, well, we think it's an ID card, a European ID card by the back door. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens in Ireland as these things are pushed through. Of course, the Irish government saying everybody needs one of these. Not least for the holographic image of the person's face and a chip which presumably has all the information of the food in your refrigerator.
Yeah.
I suggest you get one.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, the chip and pin, when it came out, but they said that wasn't going to ever be put on the chip and pins.
No, it was going to be fraud-proof.
Fraud-proof.
Yeah.
Now where are we?
Okay, well, let's go on to that subject, the eviction in Nottingham, which, of course, you were there.
Yeah.
Let's have a little look at one of the reports. This was the Daily Mail, which had a number of pictures, but here they're saying bailiffs trying to evict cancer-stricken father over mortgage are forced to retreat after 500 strangers form a human blockade. And I'll just bring in this one. This is actually from the Nottingham Post. Cancer patient Tom Crawford thanks his hundreds of supporters who warded off the bailiffs. And I found this remarkable, that what comes up with this page when you call it up on the internet is now an attached advert for HSBC Bank. So do you think Nottingham Post are actually taking the mickey out of this event, or
It
what?
appears to be so. And I mean, luckily it isn't the Bradford and Bingley, really, but also the where they, and I know I've got Tom's permission to say this, that they keep mentioning the cancer patient bit.
Yes.
And of course, Tom has got cancer, but that isn't why the people are turning up there. You know, the people are turning up there because they're aware that this whole escapade has been fraudulent. Been fraudulent from beginning to end, from the banks through the whole court process. And Tom's, you know, very active in dealing with the court process, the fraudulent nature of it. So the cancer is a side issue, but they do try to divert people's attention so that all good people would only come to help a cancer patient. Well, no, the people that are coming there, the wonderful people that have come to that, are all fully versed in what's really going on,
Right.
and you know that they're aware, and they've seen the documentation, and they're aware of what's happened.
So could we say this is a bit of a nudge by the media? I'm using that word deliberately. You take the attention off the banks and criminality and fraud in the court, and what you do is you say, well, this man is very sick, so people have only turned up, just to be nice
Just
to
to be
him.
nice to him.
Okay, so on the fact that there were several mainstream media outfits arrive, Russia Today, you said, was on site and spent a lot of time going around talking to people, trying to really understand what was going on. Did you see anything of the BBC?
The BBC sort of parachuted in very late, and I wouldn't be surprised it was after we were on the show with you, doing it live. RT were wonderful. They went around all the individuals and spoke to each person individually in the family and got their sort of gist on it. Right. They got my gist on it, on the documentation. They went right through it methodically, and I think you know, when the RT stuff comes out, it'll be very good. The BBC sort of parachuted themselves in late to the event, and I feel that may be why it got put on the mainstream news in the first segment, late at night at 10. We were all in the pub at 10 o'clock at night, you know, the pub around the corner from Tom's. And the first thing that came on the screen was the event,
Right.
And almost as if to say, because they'd heard that it was on the UK column, they'd heard that it was on RT,
Right.
and as if to say, oh, well, we've done something about it as well, you know.
So it would have been bizarre for them, wouldn't it, really, if we had Russia Today getting out on the streets to find out what's really happening, what people are really concerned about, and then there'd been no report by key organisations in our mainstream media.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we're not going to show them on camera because we're going to do some detailed work later on today. But essentially, the documents, and you've got some
I've got
here.
the documents here, yeah.
The story is that the whole of the procedure to try and repossess this house is based on fraudulent court documents.
Yes.
Just give us one or a couple of examples of what we're dealing
I'll
with.
give you a taste of it, yeah. This is actually Tom's case management file.
Okay, we're not expecting people to read this today because we're going to be doing more.
Yeah.
Just to say, these are the actual
These are
documents.
here. And at the end, it says judgment details, and it says, Brian?
No judgments recorded.
And it says there, warrant details, and it says?
No warrants recorded.
So that's basically the court's own
record
of it. And if I can just show
So no judgments and no warrants
recorded in Tom Crawford's case.
Right,
and
okay.
It actually starts when the case was recorded and created on the 17th of August 2012, and it goes through every single application letter that went on inside the court process.
Right.
And the end states there are no judgments recorded and there are no warrants recorded, which we know because we haven't seen them.
Right. But this overall record you obtained from the court.
Obtained it from the court on Tom's behalf, with Tom, and you know, this is what's come out of his file, directly off the computer.
Okay.
And what they're trying to do then is, we went to the court on that day. What we actually did at the eviction, after the time when the bailiffs were supposed to be there, what we did was we went down the court and addressed them. They wouldn't let us see any warrant. They tried to show us something through the glass. And what they showed us through the glass is one of these, which again, I can't really show you, and it's already got a pre-printed stamp on it.
The county court, and of course it's not a seal.
It's not a seal, it's a stamp. But this, and you can get this, anyone can get this off the Westlaw Documents site.
Right.
So this is what bailiffs do, this is what courts are obviously doing now, and there's not actually a court seal on any of these documents.
Right, and the rules state very clearly that all the documents coming in through the court have got to be sealed.
And the claim form has to be sealed upon when they're essential key ingredients to start a claim off. And to start a claim off, you have to go down with a claim form,
right,
a supporting affidavit, and you pay a fee. That then gets sealed and into the court process. And
Right.
so when you go down and examine those documents, they should be in that format. Of course, there's no seal, so that means it doesn't come from a county court. It's been operated in a private capacity.
Right, and this is where the fraud is.
It's where
Private
fraud.
courts operating in what we all think are public courts.
Exactly.
Right. What was the reaction of the police when you show them this document?
It was
or these documents?
well. What we did is after the event again, we went down to the court first, and then a group of us went down to the police station to report acts of terrorism and fraud against Tom and his family.
Right.
And we went down there to make. There was 23 of us went in initially to make the complaints, and I showed the police officer, the police inspector who was there, those documents that I've just shown you.
Right.
So I said, please read where it says judgments. He said, no judgments recorded. So I then said, what warrants recorded? And he said, no. Oh no, I'm not going to look. That's a bit of paper. It could have come from anywhere. I said, it came from the county court.
Right.
It's direct off the computer.
So yeah, so you get the documents from the court. They're court documents, so there's no ifs or buts. And then when you show them to the police try to say, well, actually, I don't know where this document came from.
That's right. Yeah.
And this, am I correct in saying that this police officer took his?
He'd taken his lapels off.
Right.
His things. I mean, since that time, initially we went in there and we made all the reports and Tom went and had a meeting with him in the room. He's getting back now, and the police seem to be taking a different approach to it now.
Right. So seemingly some interest from the police. We'll say the police on the ground. We don't know what's happening higher up. Did any of the journalists actually pick up on the detail of what these documents had to say?
Russia Today are the only ones that actually were interested in that.
Right. So none of the press. Journalists interested?
No,
nothing there.
I never even. I mean, as you know, a spokesperson for Tom, you know,
Right.
on these matters, along with himself, I wasn't even questioned by them. None of them at all.
Right.
So the local press had to talk to me, but of course this was a little bit beyond and over their head a little bit.
Yeah.
And of course yourselves, but that's it. You know, no, BBC not interested. ITV weren't interested.
Well, there we are. That's the statement. BBC, ITV, simply not interested at 500 people on the streets in order to protest against fraud and corruption in Britain's courts. Couldn't say it more succinctly. Let's move on with some of the other news, but we'll just stay at the moment on Nottingham Police. The Nottinghamshire Post here has said that volunteers are flocking to recruitment event as Nottinghamshire Police hire hundreds of special constables. So are we surprised? Well, we've got a force that can't investigate child abuse, but it's recruiting essentially hundreds of, a lot of them unpaid, it would appear from this article, who are then going to be on the streets, spying on their fellow citizens. So we'll just push this home. We've got vulnerable child abuse victims harassed by Nottinghamshire Police, rape and murder allegations, including around Beechwood and Beechwood victims, have simply not been investigated. But as we showed a few days ago on the Nottinghamshire Police website, they themselves were saying, well, it was the Chief Constable, Chris Ayres, was boasting he was building an army. That's their words, not UK column words. He was building an army, and we just say cynically, presumably a private army, in line with his role in the private company, the Association of Chief Police Officers.
An army of volunteers under David Cameron's big society. Yeah.
I think we're going to come on to that, guys, so you're a step ahead of me. Let's just add to that one, because what we discovered, if we took a little look, of course, we came up with this. We've got East Midlands Police Collaboration. We've got a number of police forces now working in collaboration. If they're involved with common purpose, presumably that will also be outside the silos, that will be outside their authority. We think what's going on here, this is a nudge of the police towards regionalisation of Britain's, I think it's 43 police districts. So north of the border in Scotland, of course, we've had reports, people are describing Scotland now as a single police state. It's creeping in here at the same time. So let's remember Melanie Shaw. This is the lady who has simply received no help at all from Nottinghamshire City Council, County Council. What she has reported to us is constant harassment and abuse by the police, although she does say over the last couple of days that she has dealt with some pretty reasonable policemen and women. So, what's more important? Of course, global warming. Never mind the child abuse. We need to see what's happening to the polar bears. We've used this image before. This is the Telegraph, trying to get us to believe that there's no ice left, and of course the polar bears are going to drown as their small ice floe gets smaller. The right needs to wake up. Climate change is real, and we're causing it. Now, we had a dig at this man, Rupert Myers, barrister and commentator, because he printed a glowing article saying, well, however you looked at it, he's persuaded that we need laws in order to help us do the right things as far as global warming is concerned. And we said, okay, if that's true, why are thousands of scientists not convinced? Well, Robert, well, we brought up this Climate Depot, and it was a report that more than 1,000 dissenting scientists were saying that what we're being told over global warming is simply not true. But thanks to a listener who sent us in this today, Money News, and it's got an extremely interesting article which we'd encourage people to go and see, which is basically saying, well, the whole thing's a scam. Another eminent scientist has come forward, and he said, if you really want to know what global warming's about, it's $22 billion of taxes. So this is another scam in the courts, scam over global warming, deal with banks and politicians. It's all a scam.
That's right. And a lot of people lower down, they act like it's a cult.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a cult that they're operating in.
I think that's absolutely true. Well, what is the state of Britain's politicians? We couldn't sum it up better than bringing Leon Britton's face onto screen. And of course, the Express headline here says it all, that the Tories will ignore abuse claims in order to honour Britain's legacy. So Tory grandees say they will not be deterred from honouring his achievements. The former Shadow Home Secretary Anne Widdecombe said, I would certainly attend his memorial service were I invited. She also went on to say, we know some files have gone missing, but it certainly doesn't mean Leon Britton put it under his greatcoat and spirited it home. So we're just saying that Cameron's Tories, simply unconcerned at UK child abuse, move on, nothing to see. Well, of course, this was the Express actually reporting what is now coming to the surface. So Leon Britton attended paedophile parties in notorious brothel. We're talking about Elm Guest House here in the 1970s and 1980s. Witnesses coming forward. One of the victims was a 10-year-old primary school boy. Other details that have been reported to the police include how a social worker described in testimony details seeing photos taken in the 1970s of Britton dressed in kinky outfits with naked boys sitting on his lap. So typical of the both Tory and Labour grandees, seems to fit the picture, dress up in your kinky gear. But of course, it doesn't matter how many victims come forward, nothing to see.
That's right, and we can't let the Liberals out of that because, of course, we've got Cyril Smith, etc., floating around. So
absolutely
covers the whole lot.
Can't deal with the child abuse. The police can't get into the courts. Well, there was a bit more here from the Express on the report. This was another photograph we particularly liked. But let's come back to that statement here from Anne Widdecombe. We know some files have gone missing, but it certainly doesn't mean Leon Britton put it under his greatcoat and spirit it home. So how does she actually know that? That's the key question. How does Anne Widdecombe know that it doesn't mean he did it? There's been no full police investigation. So does Anne Widdecombe know something that we don't? Interesting lady. I believe she was put forward as special envoy to the Vatican a little while ago. I don't know whether she got that post. But the Mirror picking up the point, because we've got Labour peer with dementia. Labour peer escapes probe over 20 child sex claims because he's suffering dementia. So in the matter of a couple of months, we've gone from 20 children. Oh dear, he's suffering from dementia. Oh dear, he's dead. Do you think he died of natural causes, Guy?
Well, I'm not a betting man, but I know where my money would be if I was.
Yeah. euthanized is what many people think in UK. Euthanized so that there's no problem to the Tories. Well, 38 Degrees quickly got on the banner because they wanted MPs or peers with dementia to be removed from Parliament. Unfortunately, that would mean we had no MPs or peers left because these are clearly seriously sick people. So 38 Degrees, we're not sure who's funding you, but we think you need to narrow the margins a little bit on that.
Yeah.
Does sarcasm work occasionally?
It does work occasionally, yes it does, Brian.
Okay. Well, we pointed out that the BBC, of course, just doesn't want to report the truth. And this was one of the tweets I did, simply saying, well, we've got nothing on BBC The Papers. They don't want to talk about Britain at all. There was every subject from Britain, but there was some good news, some great news indeed for the public in what they were saying, because they said there were going to be some special restrictions. I think this was to protect the Prime Minister from spoof callers.
Right. Oh, right, yes,
so
yes.
we're going to introduce legislation to protect the public from David Cameron, and I thought that was pretty
Wonderful.
pretty good.
Yeah, wonderful.
So what can we do about all this? Well, we've got the British Constitution Group Conference at the end of February, end of February, 1st of March. That's running through Friday, Saturday and Sunday. This is about revealing what's really going on and talking about solutions. And of course, what has been happening around Tom Crawford, people getting up off their backsides, I think I'm allowed to say that on UK Column, and actually doing something. This is what it's all about.
Yeah.
So back to the BBC, and here he is. Well, he's one of the most experienced BBC political reporters, Nick Robinson. And what's he been saying? Well, we'd say that he's political editor for a biased BBC, and he's using mistrust and corruption of politicians to nudge people towards a super coalition government in line with Europe. And he adds the Nazi frightener. This is what he says: my German Jewish grandparents used to tell me there were ways other than democracy to settle our differences. They witnessed them in the 30s when the Nazis abandoned the ballot box and chose violence instead, having first denigrated all politicians who didn't agree with them. Now, if you read this article, a brilliant piece of applied psychology, he's basically saying we are moving towards a super coalition, and you really need to make sure it happens, because otherwise we're going to be a Nazi state. Whereas I'd suggest the truth is we're heading to the Nazi state, and the super coalition is going to be the one government, single government.
BBC have got no credibility anymore, have they, at all?
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so. So here he is, cuddling up to Ed Balls. And this is, of course, where BBC correspondents like to be, up and cosy with the politicians. And what he's failed to report so far is all of this little lot. So if we can call it up on screen, Ed Balls used public money, of course, to attend the Bilderberg conferences. That was never brought up. We haven't had any reports on child abuse and paedophilia in Westminster. We've got no substance over reports of the BBC, Jimmy Savile. We've got BBC bullying and intimidation for licence fees. That's never covered. We've got the BBC's relation with political charity Common Purpose hacked off, and the Leveson inquiry. We've got the sheer lies of the Lib Lab con over Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, fraud and corruption in the international banking system and control of the politicians, never covered by the BBC. Nothing on the Bradbury pound. Nothing on why Marcus Agius was paid whatever it was, 48,000, 47,000 for 28 days' work. We've got no information on independent candidates. We've got no positive reporting on UKIP. No talk about the public and the public services privatisation of the NHS. That's not covered. And we've got no explanation, where are we, should be able to call that in, of how an unelected Deputy Prime Minister now has immense power via his position in the Privy Council. So why do we pay for this man outside of our licence fees? not too sure. Keeping an eye on the time here, so we'll just move through this. What does the BBC get up to in its propaganda? Well, this was, again, a report we had a couple of weeks ago, where we were showing how you skew the news about arming police. So here we've got BBC Cornwall. And what were they saying? More firearms officers to be recruited into Devon and Cornwall. But what happens in the story is we nudge it by saying, well, there's a 15% increase. But if you read what this man, Simon Hall, writes, then what he does is slowly but surely bring you down to the last bit. That sees Devon and Cornwall remain true to the unarmed principle of British policing. So don't worry that the number of arms has increased. What it really tells us is that we're remaining true to unarmed police. So this is nudging, propaganda, and Chief Superintendent Jim Nye, Head of Operations with Devon and Cornwall Police, said the police had to deal with unexpected threats, expected threats, intelligence. This is all to do with the terrorism scare.
Yeah, terrorism.
Do you think it was 500 terrorists around the home of Tom Watson?
Well, exactly. I call it 40, 50 juries, which is what we are.
Which is about what it is, yeah. So, who is responsible for this sort of reporting by the BBC? Well, we brought out this man, John Shield, Director of Communications. This was the Telegraph reporting on a spat where the Sun was criticising the pay in the BBC, and for the first time ever they printed a piece where the BBC on their website attacked the Sun in return. So the comments said that this gentleman, John Shield, is a likeable and thoughtful chap with a strategic mind and a flinty resolve born of years, in government communications. So who is he? Well, let's have a look at the man. Here he is. And if we just have a little look at his bio, we see that he was Director of Communications at the Department for Communications and Local Government, Head of News at the Department for Education and Skills, worked at the Foreign Office, and indeed number 10. So with a government man in post, obviously no problem with the government getting the propaganda through.
Usual suspects.
If we're just going to make a small adjustment here. We want to come on to this one, which is the BBC boasting that it's now set up 2 new initiatives which are going to be launched in Poland. So we've got BBC Brit and BBC Earth, and they're going to make their global channel debut in Poland. We're saying this is more of BBC Global's propaganda machine. If we have a look at what they're actually saying, it's this: the new global brands are a key part of BBC Worldwide's strategic plan. Listen to this: to inspire global audiences and cement the BBC's international reputation for excellence in factual reporting.
Wonderful.
Apart from the news, which
that's right,
of course they make up. And here we are. BBC Brit offers premium factual entertainment that is intelligent but irreverent. So that means it's going to be the usual dross from the BBC. It's also male skewing. Well, presumably the BBC or maybe the Polish people know what that means. It doesn't mean anything to me. But BBC Earth, which is obviously designed to get us into the one world government mode, is going to be showing incredible wonders of the universe.
Here we go.
Not a lot we can say. No. How are we doing for time, Nick? I'm short of a countdown here at the moment. 2 minutes. Well, ideal time to bring up one of my favourite politicians, which is Mr. Miliband. And here we've got, surprisingly, BBC News acting as a propaganda machine for the Labour Party. So here's BBC News tweeting out that Ed Miliband is saying that our country's most precious institution faces its most perilous moment in a generation. So Labour, Conservatives, Lib Dems conspire to destroy it, and BBC is pumping out the propaganda.
Nazi Germany all over.
I'd say so. Did you pay the TV licence?
No.
Okay. And we'll end on this one that surprisingly, talking about the wonders of the universe and gardening, we've got Alan Titchmarsh, who's stepped into a little bit of a swamp. He's become Chancellor of Winchester University, and he's stepped into the middle of a row over an American speaker, a Professor Eric Anderson, who recently reached a private settlement with a Christian campaigner who challenged Anderson's lecture when he said he hoped he would go on to have thousands of young boys from the age of 16 onwards. And what was actually said in this, so that was going on at Winchester. I've jumped across to this slide a little bit early, but I just thought people would like to say that Pink News is also promoting Nick Clegg. Well, I've always thought he's quite a nice boy.
Yes, right.
And what they're saying is Nick Clegg has been speaking up for gay Holocaust victims. And he says, as we pay tribute to them, we must never forget the tens of thousands of gay people who were so brutally persecuted and executed at the hands of the Nazis simply because of their sexuality. But this is the same man who runs away from people who say, what are you going to do, Mr. Clegg, to deal with child abuse victims?
Institutional paedophilia, yeah.
He ran away, literally ran away, but he's going to spend time promoting gays who died in the Holocaust. And we'll end with this gentleman, and this is a picture which I love. Do you not think he's very well groomed?
Good God, yeah.
I think he's been very well groomed, makeup applied. And what's he been doing? Well, Chancellor George Osborne has been promoting the corporate agenda of fracking firm Quadrilla. And you can find this letter online, which he sent to the Economic Affairs Committee. But in it, you will see that he is saying we need to do everything possible, including convincing the European Commission to get fracking going. And we need to deal with all the things that Quadrilla has asked us for. So clearly not working for the public, he's working for...
Company man.
Company man. But he does look very attractive. A little bit of eye makeup on there, I think. Well done, George. Well, we're going to end there. Short UK column news. As I've indicated, we're going to be interviewing Guy Taylor a little later this afternoon, and that will form an in-depth analysis of events at Nottingham, fraud and corruption in the courts and banks. Thanks very much for joining us. We will be back same time tomorrow, and I will be joined by Louise Collins, if I may say so, a little more attractive than you, Guy. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.
Bye.